Hey, thanks for stopping in to We Called It. I'm your host, Philip Call, and joined with Dr. Kenneth Call. How are you, Ken?
Hey, good. I'm happy that I'm not seeing my face right now. So you guys are all just going to get a whole bunch of fill today. Totally great with me. Excited to talk about some receivers here.
Yeah. Instead of looking at Ken's face, we have a screenshot from the day of my wedding that, makes him look much happier than he actually is.
The best and only good picture I've ever taken in my life, including my own wedding. So enjoy it.
All right, so today we are going to be covering top wide receiving cores. Previously, we covered not top quarterbacks, but franchise quarterbacks. So I guess this is our next take on a positional group in the NFL. The difference this time will be this is not a franchise value aspect. This will only be going into next year. Who do we think has the best receiving cores? So let's get started right away. Ken, who are your top of the top receiving cores?
We're going straight to the top to start.
The only ones that people care about.
Okay, so you guys can get off here in about 5 minutes after we're done. But my top five, in any random order, include the Rams, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Bucks, and the 49ers.
All right. So, what stands out about those teams for you?
So the biggest thing I did when I was making this list was the more top heavy the number one, number two, and even number three option, the less I cared about either the third or the fourth. Because when you get target hogs, I mean, I honestly I don't care what the last receiving option is. Doesn't matter how pass heavy you are, but that certainly, if you're just looking at the starting positions, wide receiver one, wide receiver two, slot, and tight end, I mean, it gets a little, finicky of like, oh, well, are you good all the way through? Is the depth there versus are you top heavy? And you can ask any quarterback out there, they'd rather have a really good 1 and 2 option than, for, average to above average options. So that was one thing that I definitely put into account when I was doing these rankings. The hardest part is, it's so easy just to look at production, but this is not what we're doing. It's all about avoiding, people who, do you get the bump for the quarterback? Are you, taking a few spots back because poor quarterback play, poor offensive line? And really, that's definitely the hardest part when making these lists. But we did our best. We'll see how it turns out.
Well, and to Ken's point, when you boil it down to just the receivers themselves, we actually came into agreement on our top four teams. That is the Bengals, the Raiders, the Buccaneers, and the Niners. We don't have them in the exact same order, so I guess we'll just start looking at the Buccaneers. Ken has them at 1. I have them at 3. So, what made the Buccaneers stand out the most for you?
So I think the biggest difference that we're going to have here is the fact that I'm assuming that Rob Gronkowski will be back. First off, I just think he just does not want to do these, involuntary camps, these mandatory mini camps. But guess what? He doesn't need to. The most important thing that he has is great connection with their quarterback. I know we're not supposed to look into that, but guess what? With Gronk, with the tight end, he's going to produce with Tom Brady. There's no doubt about it. I hope that he gets that signed, before it's too late. But at the same time, I put him in. Also, the same thing. Russell Gage last year, I'm definitely a little higher on him than most. For him, I mean, he was in an awful situation, an aging Matt Ryan, a poor offense in general around, and he actually did pretty good as the makeshift number one receiving option. He went from being behind everybody, the year before, Calvin Ridley, Julio, to really being the one option with Cordero Patterson coming out of the backfield, and go from that to being the third, maybe even fourth option on this team. I think he's a fantastic fourth. Yes, Chris Godwin. A lot of question marks. You got the ACL later in the year. ACL injuries have, they're not the same as they were 10, 15 years ago. I mean, they are. If he's not ready for the beginning of the season, guess what? I'm okay with that. You don't win a Super Bowl in week 6, you know? If he's on the pup list, he misses the first 6 weeks, I don't care because guess what? He'll be there at the end. People usually bounce back from these ACL injuries pretty well, and I'm a huge believer in him. You know, Mike Evans is Mike Evans. He's going to be Mike Evans. He's going to do Mike Evans things, which is right around 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns every year. He's got rapport with the deep ball with Tom Brady. I just think all around, especially when they're healthy, this is number one.
So, as you can tell, Ken bet me that he couldn't say Mike Evans 15 times in one sentence, and he absolutely nailed it right there. But, so I had them at 3. Like you said, Gronk being there would absolutely change things. I think he was putting up like 50, 60, 70 yards a game, like regularly last year when he was healthy. And Cameron Brate is a respectable backup, but if you get that starter punch, contrary to you, I'm low on Russell Gage. But I don't know. I just think when he was the center of attention in Atlanta, he never did anything to impress me, which is really sad because with the games he missed last year, the people that were on the field impressed me even less. So we'll talk about actually we won't even talk about the Falcons. That's how low we have them rated. But Chris Godwin, I'm with you. Go ahead.
With that being said, I get really excited about players who go from, oh, you're getting the number one cornerback, or you're getting all the attention, to you are, the last thought on this offense. When those 4 players go out for a pass, especially in the red zone, you're looking Evans, you're looking Gronk, you're looking Godwin, you're not looking Russell Gage. And so that I really think, being number one option, not his thing. He's not there. But guess what? As the third or fourth option on the field, give me Russell Gage every time.
All right. So, and now just to state this, my opinion on what made the top is if you actually take away their top 2 options, can that third option take over the game? And I don't feel that way about Russell Gage and Cameron Brate individually, but between the two, I actually do feel that they'll be good enough. That's why I have them at 3. Let's just go to both of our second team, and I feel like we don't have to spend much time on this. It's the Raiders for both of us. Devontae Adams, Demarcus Robinson, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. Essentially, the top 3 on that, that's Adams, Renfrow, and Waller, really, the top 3 targets. They're just some of the best at what they do, and you can have fun taking one away, but the other 2 will absolutely wreck you completely. Do you agree?
Yeah, and that was the thing I was really thinking about. I really had a hard time. I almost put them number 1 here because I think when you have a stud wide receiver 1, stud tight end, and a stud slot receiver, I think the other wide receiver 2 is the easiest one to replace on the field. I don't think that player has to be very good to get production, and not going to have a lot of focus from a defense. So somebody can definitely pop up there. It might not be Demarcus Robinson. It could be that it's not Guyton. It's the Tyron Johnson, or somebody else from the Raiders. It doesn't take much to get something when they're getting no focus out there. I just think that they hit wide receiver 1, slot, and tight end, and that's just more important. And that's actually, I was really close, or that's exactly why I put them above the Bengals for my rankings, and they're at number 2. Bengals are at number 3.
All right, so let's just go on to that next one then right away. Bengals are my number 1 team. Connor, Lucas, and I have been hyping them up ever since the Super Bowl, saying T. Higgins is that elite receiver to pair with Jamar Chase. The absolute, maybe the best wide receiver in terms of franchise value currently in the NFL. So the reason I have them at number 1, while Ken has them at 3, is that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, either one can go off for 200 yards. It happened all the time last year. But even in games when you are able to slow one down, stop one, slow the other down. Tyler Boyd was even going off, catching 75-yard touchdowns, making people miss. I think he ended still with 800 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. Hayden Hurst is their starting tight end. Doesn't even come into my mind because Jamar Chase demands 2, maybe 3 defenders, and T. Higgins is also going to demand that many. And then Boyd is good enough that he'll be left in single coverage, And even if you take away those top two, he's going to completely wreck the game.
Okay, guys. So for all the listeners out there, there's these rankings of receivers, and Phil has these A plus, A's, A minuses.
All right, hold the phone.
So
Hold the phone. These grades I have hidden on our Google sheet that is top secret that no one will ever see. They were 15 minutes before this started. I was throwing them in there to get like a general ballpark. And Ken, I'm sure, went up and counted the A pluses and the A's and is going to throw it in my face. But don't believe it. It's all made up. Just, a gut check, okay?
You know what? For Phil's sake, I'm gonna pass because I agree they are that bad and that ridiculous. The amount of people that he has in front of T. Higgins is minimal. We'll put it to you that way.
I have 7. I have 7 people in front of T. Higgins.
Yeah, and actually one of them's super laughable because one of them is Michael Thomas, and I would never do that.
You wouldn't put... Okay, we'll talk about the Saints in actually a little bit. They're pretty far down. All right, let's go on to team number 4. And again, we agree here. We have...
Just real quick on the Bengals. I actually really agree with you with a lot. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I love that 1-2 and slot. Once again, I would prefer to have a stud tight end versus a wide receiver too. That was really the only difference. It's hard to tell because they did really well. They didn't... For a team that really focused on the run, to have this elite of a receiving core is just really I don't know, questionable. We'll see what happens when, next year they inevitably get a little more pass heavy.
I was going to say, yeah, Zach Taylor, awful play calling last year. We brought it up several times, but they got that improved offensive line, so maybe they will feed Joe Burrow more, or let Joe Burrow cook. And then we have our number 4 team, the 49ers. We both agree here once again. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle. And I think between Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, we talked about this, I think, yesterday, you and I on a phone call. That is probably the best 1-2 punch for any team. You have an absolute, top of the line receiver as well as a top of the line tight end. However, the drop off to Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, I think, is steep. So that's why they fall in at just that last team on my top of the line rankings.
So once again, with Phil, these A pluses. This is the only team that actually had 2 A pluses. I'm just going to give a little shout out, man crush to George Kittle here because the dude is not. I mean, he's an elite blocker. He's an elite tight end route runner, and he is a playmaker with the ball in his hands. He makes people miss often. Man, just stay on the field, man. We just want to see you out there. Same thing with Deebo. I'm a little higher on Ayuk than Phil based off of these gradings. But I think he's flashed. I just think, this is a team that, you have a strong quarterback bias. We've all agreed that Jimmy Garoppolo did not, get the best out of all of his receiving core last year. Brandon Ayuk, there's not enough ball to go around when you're running the ball like 30 times and you want that slow-paced game. But when Ayuk was called upon, I mean, at the second half of the year, I think the pass rate when throwing to him was like 119. I have nothing bad. This is a bold one, but I think Brandon Ayuk is closer to T. Higgins than T. Higgins is to Jamar Chase. Whoa! Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but according to Phil's rankings, that was a bold one.
No, because I think people were saying Jamar Chase is like the next Randy Moss or has that potential. So if you're saying someone's not close to him, I can't argue with you. But also Brandon Ayuk has in his first 2 years, he had 750 yards the first year, 830 yards the second year. I think he just needs to prove more to me, and he was in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse like half of last year. It's hard for me to buy that that he has kind of that upside that will be that breakout for 1,200 yards or something when he has trouble breaking out of that doghouse.
I don't know. The breakout. The only thing, if you're going to see him like production wise, first off, I don't want to get into it too much, but if you're expecting more of the Trey Lance production, like the rookie production from a quarterback, you can't feed 3 receivers. You just can't. Production's going to be limited. But if Deebo or Kittle get hurt, I think Ayuk can easily step into that like 1-2 punch that they have going on. And I'm just much higher on Ayuk than you are, which is totally fine.
All right, so just want to get this out the way. T. Higgins has shown that he can get 200 yards if Jamar Chase doesn't. Can Brandon Ayuk recreate Debo's best games?
I mean, from his rookie year,
So that's
Brandon
a no.
Ayuk
That's
had
enough. That's
very
enough.
similar.
You put a condition on it. It should have been a simple yes if you thought so. Moving on.
Okay.
I know.
Right.
We're here talking, and I just interrupt you and say no. I love it. All right, we're going to go on to the Dolphins. We're actually going to skip my 5th ranked team, and we'll come back. But the Dolphins, Ken has them at 6. I have them at 7. And actually, it's funny. I put tiers next to all the teams just to get a ballpark idea of who they are. And I actually labeled the Dolphins as I'm sorry Tua is your quarterback, just because they have so much speed, they have so much talent. But man, this team is going to be running sprints sideline to sideline instead of down the field for their pass plays.
No, when we first did this, I actually thought we were doing offensive weapons, and that I actually had to downgrade the Dolphins a whole lot when you start putting Cedric Wilson and Mike Gesicki, into this. Now, first off, Tyreek Hill, we've talked about it before. There are speedsters in the league. There are teams that there's players that can just take the top off of everyone. Like the Chiefs last year. Like you had to play deep cover two, or else Tyreek Hill will burn you at least once. I mean, he is not just a speedster. He is a special player. He is an elite receiver. It's the difference between him and all the other fast receivers in the game. And between that and Jalen Waddle, I mean, he proved he can do short and intermediate routes all day long with Tua. He didn't have the option to prove that he can do anything more. But everything from his rookie year, I definitely loved what I saw out of him. Not as big a fan of Cedric Wilson and Mike Gesicki for the rest of it, and that's really why I had them out of my top 5. But this isn't a whole offense that if Tua can just play adequately, I mean this is a team that will be dangerous.
So I think I'm actually higher on Cedric Wilson than you because he looked really good in everything he flashed for the Cowboys last year. And while I wouldn't be happy if he was like my number 2 option as a slot receiver, because last year, he was like the 4th or 5th option on the Cowboys. As the 3rd option, maybe even the 4th behind Hill, Waddle, and Gesicki, I think he can thrive, especially with his speed. But I don't know. I think maybe I'm holding Jalen Waddle is the guy I'm actually holding the most against, and it's probably because last year he had Tua at quarterback, and so he was catching 10 passes for 82 yards. And I just didn't see that explosion I wanted out of a receiver. But still have them at 7 in that 7-6 range. So still probably a team that if Tua looks better, these guys will move up into that top tier group and maybe knock someone out. But for now, I just can't give them more credit based on their production. All right, let's go on to the Vikings then. Ken has them at 8. I have them at 6. I think what my biggest problem with the Vikings is, yes, Justin Jefferson, absolutely wonderful. One of my favorite receivers, all-world kind of guy. Maybe the number 2 franchise value receiver behind Jamar Chase. But Adam Thielen's getting older. I'm not a fan of KJ Osborne outside of, he's a fine 3rd option. I do like Irv Smith, but I don't see the high-end potential here in terms of Justin Jefferson can get you 1,500 yards. Who next year could get you 1,200 and be that second, complete scary receiver to go to? I'm just not buying that they have it too much. Honestly, there was a report that Dalvin Cook was lining up at receiver to take passes out there. So maybe he will be that next new receiver. Why do you have him at 8?
Yeah, so I definitely don't hate him. And
these are top 8 receiving cores. No, we're not saying we hate anyone.
I know, but the thing is, especially with Justin Jefferson, I mean, they could have been higher. They could have been way higher. Thielen, this is the thing. When he was on the field last year, he was great. I mean, he did not lose a step, and he's going to be 32 this year. And everyone's just expecting him to. He hasn't. I'm definitely more the one where I'm going to buy into a receiver until I see the fall off instead of just wait for it and just wait for it. I don't know. I think it's a little overblown and not really. I mean, 32 is old for a receiver, but like the people are getting like 29 or getting 30. We're going to talk about Allen Robinson here in a minute. But if you're just talking about 1-2 punches, I mean, Justin Jefferson, Thielen, that one is definitely in my top 5. But I just the rest of the weapons around it. KJ Osborne, he had a few broken plays last year. Irv Smith. You just keep hearing about Irv Smith. You haven't really seen Irv Smith. But I'm just not impressed with the rest of it. And it's one of those things that when you start talking about weapons, total offenses, you talk about Justin Jefferson and Thielen, and then you start talking about Dalvin Cook. All of a sudden, you're having a different conversation because you're going from pretty good to ooh, that's real good. I don't want to use the words studs or elite in our conversation here because they're taken very seriously in this room.
Yeah, you can only use the words elite when describing T. Higgins. All right. All right, let's go on. Ken was hinting at it. This is a big point of, I guess, is discourse a fair word to mean differences? I don't know. The Rams. Ken has them all the way up at 5, while I have them down at 13. We're going to publish the whole list of rankings later, so we won't cover every team, just kind of the top end, and then any points of, discussion that we had. So anyways, Ken, you go first. Tell them why they're 5, and then I'll tell you why I don't feel that that should be that high.
Okay, so Phil was wrong in his list. I think he forgot the Rams and he just threw them in and he forgot to bump them up here or something like that. Because the truth is, we're looking at receiver corps. We're looking at a whole. And if Cooper Kupp is on your receiving corps and he's not in your top 5, then you messed up your rankings. I'm sorry. We haven't seen a year like what he did last year since Jerry Rice, man. And guess what? What he has with Stafford is not going away. I think Phil thinks that Cooper Kupp tore his Achilles or his ACL, in these involuntary training camps or something. But the big deal is that the number 1 receiver in the league right now is at Phil's number 15 position. This isn't supposed to be hate for Phil, but that's what it's turning into here. But really, the truth is that Allen Robinson, as their 2, who knows what happened last year? But of course, when the question is, was he just not trying out there? Allen Robinson actually, in some comments, he strongly felt like the Bears were trying to decrease his stats and so like he would be more affordable, different things like that. But clearly, I think he is much better than what Phil thinks. Van Jefferson as well. I mean, now? First off, when OBJ went out in the Super Bowl, they definitely tried to hit Van Jefferson, and it was Van Jefferson messing up routes. Not getting that second effort for the ball. He definitely showed a lot, or left a lot on the field. But being a third option behind those 2, I think that's fine. Tyler Higbee, I think Tyler Higbee is a fine receiving tight end. Especially with I don't know what's going on with OBJ, but the potential of just him coming back. This team. I have him 5, and I feel like I'm too low on them.
All right. So my big punishment against this team, and we are going to talk about extreme recency bias coming up after this again, is that when OBJ was on the field in the Super Bowl, the Bengals didn't have an answer for them at all because they actually had 2. I would say Cooper Kupp. You're right. He's the only guy I considered putting A++ for. That's how good he was last year.
You should have.
But when OBJ went out, they looked lost on offense. They stalled for nearly the whole second half. And they had the one playoff. They had the one drive at the end, but that was all Cooper Kupp, completely wrecking the Bengals. So that's why I'm low on Van Jefferson. You said it best. His playoff numbers were terrible. He had 2 catches for 29 yards against Tampa Bay, 2 catches for 9 yards against San Fran, and 4 for 23 in the Super Bowl. He's that guy that can catch a 50-yard, 60-yard touchdown easy, but I'm not liking what I saw out of him in terms of when you need a number 2 option. or even like a 2B op. I don't know. When Allen Robinson isn't having a good game. Now, they are 13 because I am low on Allen Robinson right now, and that's, again, recency bias from last year. His 2 years, or his two most recent years with the Bears outside of whatever was last year, he had 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns and 1,250 yards and 6 touchdowns. If he starts at that level again, then he'd probably be closer to an A, and they would be much higher, probably on that 8-9 cusp kind of range for me. But until I see it, I won't believe it. Until I see it again, I won't believe it. I am excited, and I did say, what was it? After on our free agency episode, I believe Allen Robinson can break that elite group. He just hasn't had that quarterback to get him there. So I'm very low. I'm very low, but this is a group of receivers. This is a receiving core that I think has a wide range of outcomes. I think they could be one of the best. I also think if Allen Robinson looks old, much the way Julio Jones did last year when everyone loved them, most like me, it just didn't look great and things fell off a little.
So real quick, what happened? Where would you put him if Robert Woods never gets hurt and they keep him, and it's Robert Woods instead of Allen Robinson? You know, with Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and Higbee. Forget about Odell.
Slightly.
Where would
slip? Let me see. They'd probably be in the exact same spot, right? Right now.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So that's not a remark on the difference between Allen Robinson and Robert Woods. We won't talk about Robert Woods because I have the Titans so low. But that is more so where they are. Is if I look at the teams behind them, Cooper Kupp is. All the other teams behind them is they have one good receiving option and everyone else is pretty good. And I think Cooper Kupp is just way better than all the other guys. Like I said, this was thrown together 15 minutes before. Maybe the Rams should be ahead of the Eagles. I don't know. All right, so let's go to the other point that is contentious, and that is the Bills. Ken has them at 12. I have them at 5. I have Stephon Diggs as an elite option. And the reason I have them one spot ahead of the Rams is because I think their receiving core is just so much deeper, where they don't have any C's. They have Gabriel Davis, who showed in the playoffs 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. He can be just as good as Jerry Rice. I'm just kidding. The stats were as good as Jerry Rice. Gabriel Davis is not. I do like the addition of Jamison Crowder. I don't think he's as good as Cole Beasley, but I think he is a fine replacement. And then Dawson Knox, what was he? He was like a top 5 fantasy tight end. And I know fantasy isn't always the direct relation to production or to like quality, but he is a huge red zone threat, and he is part of the reason they turn good drives into touchdowns instead of field goals. I just think, I don't know. I like that this team has that likelihood that they can break out into that top, it's a statistics term, but they can break that right tail and they can break out and be one of the best.
And now, as much as I love the Bills' passing game, I'm not in love with the receiving core. So I completely agree on Stephon Diggs. I mean, he is an elite receiver. Mm-hmm. He is a stud, whatever you want to say, but clearly a top 7, top 8 receiver in the league. My thing is Gabriel Davis. He has shown flashes, and when I mean flashes, it's a game about once a year of flashes, and what I see from him is good. But I mean, to call him a decent number 2, I mean, you just haven't seen it. I mean, they chose Emmanuel Sanders over him for a good portion of the year, and Jamison Crowder. I mean, I'm just not impressed with what he's done. He's always been a good, acceptable slot receiver. I don't think by any means he breaks the mold at all. Dawson Knox is another one where I think he really benefits from Josh Allen's play action on the goal, or the read option really on the goal line. I think that you have a bunch of good players and Stephon Diggs, that does not make a top five team for me.
So I think what did it for me is you're right. They lose in terms of their number 2 option everywhere. But I think if I compare them to these other teams, 3 and 4 they win every time.
3 and 4.
Yeah. So
I see. I'm not as high on their 3 and 4. I really am not.
I think their offense utilizes their depth more. I don't know. It's probably like this is probably some Josh Allen bias, but I don't know. I think they have more ways to beat you, and that's what I like.
I think that I did a better job of removing the Josh Allen bias, because the fact is that his running, what he adds every time he drops back, really, adds to all the receivers. And you're going to see, overproduction from the receivers based off of, a dynamic quarterback. And I really think that that's what you see here more than anything. In that opinion of one really good one, and then other players, like I don't see how they differ. They're definitely better, but they don't differ that much from the Chiefs.
Actually, we can go right there right now. Do you have the Chiefs marked? Yes, you did have the Chiefs marked. Excellent. So that covers pretty much the top of our lists. Everyone else, I would say it starts to group up. We have maybe 1 or 2 more teams we'll mention, but since Ken brought up the Chiefs,
there's more. There's like 4 more teams, man.
Well, I just meant like the top, like that covers our top 8-ish each, I think.
Okay.
So the rest are teams we want to discuss, not teams that are good. But let's talk about the Chiefs. You mentioned them. So this is a team that just lost Tyreek Hill, and I feel like put a bunch of Band-Aids on replacing him. Don't get me wrong. But I am a personal Juju Smith-Schuster huge fan. I think starting his rookie season, I drafted him every time I could, except for last year because of Ben Roethlisberger. But Travis Kelce, still absolutely, in my opinion, the best tight end in the NFL. Is going to go ahead and just get 1,400, 1,500 yards or whatever, catch 10 touchdowns, be an absolute monster. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, can now fill in again as that number 2 middle of the field option. And then with receivers like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, and we don't have Sky Moore in this group listed, but I am very high on Sky Moore and think he'll have time to develop behind all these other guys. They have field stretchers, and they have guys that can work and they have 2 guys that can work the middle of the field very well. I currently have them at rank 14. I don't think Ken got this far in his list, so just want to say mine is more thorough. But let's see, why do you want to talk about the Chiefs outside of what they
I gotta tell you that after number 13, I did not care. So,
which is completely fair based on who they are. It was very hard for me to split.
Travis Kelce is clearly far and away their number 1 option. I get that tight ends stick around. They pop up a little later in their careers. They stick around a little later. It's not based solely off athleticism. But when your number 1 option far and away is a 32-year-old tight end who is actually older than Gronk. I love that stat, by the way. I completely love that Travis Kelce's older than Gronk. I know you didn't think it. I know.
Yeah, not in injury years.
But it's the thing.
Ken, you're wrong. Gronk is 33, born May 14th, 1989, compared to October 5th, 1989.
Oh,
so,
they're the same age. Okay,
yeah, they're 6 months off from each other. They graduated high school the same year.
Okay. Well, they're the same age, and I love that because you don't even consider that at all. But I hate to bring fantasy into it too much, but you don't substitute a player that scored 20 fantasy points with 2 that score 10. That does not do well for you. And I think that that's kind of what you're doing with MVS, Mecole Hardman, what was it? Sky Moore. Yeah. Sky Moore. I do like Juju, but the truth is it's a whole change in philosophy, and let's be real, like if these guys were getting passes from pick a crappy quarterback.
Drew Lock.
That's Drew Lock? Oh, stop. Okay. Pick a less crappy quarterback.
I was going to say, we could give him Tua, since that's I'm sorry, Tua is your quarterback group.
If these are Tua's things, we're not even in the top 20 with them. I'm sorry. And, they might produce because of who's throwing them the ball, but that's really it. Like, I mean, McCole Hardman has shown nothing, nothing special. It's been a wannabe Tyreek Hill, and it's never been there. MVS, I really hope MVS can do something with Mahomes, but he had Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball and couldn't really, break out there. And if he did, if he was that good with Aaron Rodgers, he would still be on the Packers because they definitely need people. So, they threw a bunch of money at MVS. I didn't like that move. I do like the Juju pickup, but also I don't even want to think of Juju as a veteran in the league. He's a 25-year-old kid. I mean, he still has so much left in the tank. I hope injuries don't, cook him. But at the same time, he hasn't shown much in a while. So that's why I'm so down on him.
All right. Let's go on to the Broncos next. I think this is the most fascinating, probably wide receiver group in the NFL. Everyone's hyped up how good this receiving core can be with a legitimate quarterback. And don't get me wrong, Drew Lock is absolutely terrible. And I think like 99% of the ways. And now you're looking at Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy. I even like KJ Hamler and Albert O. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so we'll stick with Albert O.
Yep.
I have them at 8. You have them at 11. I actually have them marked as could be the next big thing. That was the tier and group I put them in. And that's just because Jerry Jeudy is a top 16 maybe pick in the draft, and super hyped coming into the NFL. Cortland Sutton has flashed extreme athleticism. Tim Patrick has been nice, and KJ Hamler is a burner. Like they have a well balanced receiving core in addition to just a lot of talent. So I guess what did you want to discuss? Because you actually have these guys marked as a discussion point.
And you try so hard to like separate, just the absolute wide receiver talent from the quarterback. And it's so hard because, Cortland Sutton has like really half a year of real production.
Mm-hmm.
And, I kind of see them as the exact opposite of the Vikings, whereas you have, top heavy, Jefferson, Thielen, and nothing else versus, 4 good receivers, a good tight end. And, I'd really like to see Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. I mean, one of those two, we could be talking about next year as, in the stud or elite category, depending on what Russell Wilson can do with them. But, this is one that, I have them at 11. I could have easily had them all the way up to, probably 7 or 8. And next year they could be, they could be higher. They're going to be exciting to watch. I like the depth. I just think that there's a lot of question marks, unfortunately, just with what they've had back there. And Tim Patrick, he's really an interesting guy. Like he produces with these limited targets. He wasn't a big name coming out. He has a very generic name, but at the same time, I mean, he's been okay. He's done a lot with what he's been dealt. So. I like all 4 of their receivers. I think Sutton or Jeudy. Every single day I toss back and forth on like which one I think is gonna really more break out. But I hope to see it. And could make for some exciting football over in the NFC West there.
Yeah, this is another team with that high right tail to it. So good chance of positive outcomes if things play out right. All right, let's go on to the Eagles next. I think this is a receiving core. That would be in the same vein in terms of talent-wise. You're looking at A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and then Quez Watkins. I don't think there's a reason those first 3 they could all be in the A groupings, A+ groupings for given their talent. However, Jalen Hurts is currently their quarterback, and I think this is a team that if Russell Wilson was on it, would absolutely be getting a ton of love. But they have, unfortunately, if the Broncos have that right tail kind of positive outlook, the Eagles have that left tail where it's not a lot of good might be happening, and that's just because of the quarterback play. I have them at 11. Ken has them at 7.
Yeah, the big one here, A.J. Brown, man, I almost disagree with you on your ranking here of A because I'm a little higher on him. I think he is a an A plus. Yeah, I think he's a stud. Devonta Smith, he showed some flashes, and it's like, with Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, what do you expect more than flashes? You got to get the ball there. And especially, second half of the year, he did well with limited targets, and they decided, well, everybody just needs limited targets. Jalen Hurts needs limited throws. I completely expect a different, bit going on there. And like I was saying, I hate to, give people a different ranking based off of their quarterback, but unfortunately, like, this is a lot of wait and see. Like, Dallas Goedert's looked good. Quez Watkins, as a fourth option, is just fine. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, like, there's a lot of potential there, but it certainly is a wait and see. Well, because they could look like the Broncos with Drew Lock next year.
Mm-hmm.
Just everybody, just leaving it on the field, like leaving a lot to be desired. But once again, for some fun football, I really hope not.
All right, so we're gonna do a quick speed round on these next things. They're teams I have ranked, but Ken doesn't have too much on. So let's just fly through. So I have the Seahawks. Now this surprised me. I have them at 9 because DK Metcalf A-, Tyler Lockett A-, Noah Fant is a good explosive tight end. And then outside of that, I don't know much about Freddie Swain, but I thought he had some good games last year. But it's just funny to me that everyone's saying Russell Wilson is moving to Denver with all these weapons. And then you realize in Seattle, he actually had a pretty good receiving core. The only difference is Noah Fant, I guess, raised the bottom end of it to me, giving them a third option instead of fully relying on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I know you don't have them ranked outside because they're not in your top 13. But what do you think about the Seahawks?
I had them in the same but boring category. It's the same thing as last year. If they had Joe Burrow as their quarterback, I mean, we might be talking about them top 5. But guess what? They don't. They're on a boring offense, and unfortunately, all that leads to us thinking they're less. They're more boring. Noah Fant, I'm sorry, I just haven't seen enough from him. Like, the only thing around him is hype, man. It's Noah Fant hype.
What about his rookie season when he had like a 75-yard touchdown in like 3 games in a row?
Yeah, and there was a lot of hype there, and that was it.
No, I love Noah Fant. I just love his explosive playability, and it just seems like they have they just have so much raw athleticism. But of course, they don't have a single route runner on their team. I wish Connor was here to rip them apart for not being able to shake and bake and run a diverse playbook. But of course, we'll get Connor back, and we'll hear more about why the Seahawks, they have talent but nothing else. All right, so next up, another one I want to talk about was the Saints. I have them at 10. Ken has them unranked. Now, the Seahawks were a team very hard for me to rank. One, Michael Thomas. I had to decide, is he going to be Michael Thomas? And I just said yes. He's going to be that receiver we saw recently who you can feed 1 billion targets to, and no matter what, it's going to look great. Jarvis Landry, I actually like on the Saints for just him and Thomas kind of occupy the same space, but I think they can do it differently, and I think he just, gives the Saints a second option when teams focus Thomas. But Chris Olave is one of the receivers I really like as an outside threat coming in the NFL. Unfortunately, I gave rookie receivers no greater than a C+ because of the uncertainty around them. But I really think he is one that can provide that outside punch when he gets one-on-one coverage. So any thoughts on the Saints outside of you didn't want to rank them?
I mean, the big thing is Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry, I mean, he got in a year where they were just throwing money at wide receivers. He was an afterthought in free agency. The Browns threw less at him. If he was good, maybe they would keep him around. Michael Thomas, we haven't seen him play in a year and a half, and last time we didn't look okay. I don't know what's going on. Like, usually these ankle injuries don't last 2.5 years or whatever he's doing. But they're still saying like, oh, he might not be ready for training camp, and it's like, why not? There's no medical reason besides he's getting some bad advice from people. But either way, I think you're way overrating like Michael Thomas. I don't expect someone who's been gone a year and a half to show his previous ability. Jarvis Landry's getting older for a wide receiver, and the thing is, of course, being a Browns fan and watching him, like, he doesn't look like that explosive. I got that next step receiver that he used to. It's not just an age thing. It's he's on and off the field, and then like you're saying, uncertainty with rookies. I think the difference is I'm much lower on Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I think Michael Thomas being an A plus and Chris Olave being one of my like favorite rookies has me skewing towards thinking that the good outcomes will happen. Especially, I love Jameis, so maybe that hurts. Like I need to believe that Jameis will do well, so I give him a good receiving core. Last one that I want to talk about is the Cardinals. So this is a team that I feel like has so much name value, but is not actually that good. Hollywood Brown, everyone's like, oh, he just needs more targets. He got like 150 last year and did not produce well. And people are going to say Lamar Jackson didn't throw the ball. That's a discussion for another time. Rondale Moore looked like a fun, gadgety player, but didn't really produce much. AJ Green, he's just old and a big name, and I think has been a letdown. And then Zach Ertz is, I think, a nice tight end, but I also don't think he's going to produce. Like, he's nice. He'll probably put up similar to who did we talk about previously on the Rams? Tyler Higbee. I could see them being in that same vein now. This team, though, they do have Nuke Hopkins, who is obviously, an elite receiver when he's on the field, missing the first 6 games. So that gets them a little bit of a ding, too. But this is a team, I think, with a wide range of outcomes where if it all works out, it will be great. Whereas if it doesn't, it's going to look really bad. So what do you think?
Yeah, and this one's more of a personal thing. I know for like Chris Godwin example, if he's on the pup for the first 6 weeks, like I didn't give him much of a decrease, but for DeAndre Hopkins with the peds, for some reason I just you get the slap on the wrist. I just because of that, if he was there, I would definitely be tempted to put them in my top, honestly, 6 or so. So, but Marquise Brown, especially, being a compliment to Hopkins, and then Rondale Moore, Zach Ertz. Like, there's so much potential. Like, this could be one. There's so many names. They got depth. They got old reliable with AJ Green and Zach Ertz. You got some playmaking with Rondale Moore, Marquise Brown, and then like a literal stud level with DeAndre Hopkins. It's next year we could be talking about, man, this is an unstoppable passing attack. I think Cliff Kingsbury gets in the way of it because he does poorly in the second half of the year when he will have Hopkins. And just with that, I just think it's a bit of a recipe for disaster, or at least, an average to above average receiving core when really it should be higher.
Yeah, I had them marked as could be the next big thing. So I did acknowledge that, they have that kind of upside. But to me, whereas on other teams I was giving them that credit and being like, yeah, I think you're going to hit that right side, of the distribution. But I think this will be one that doesn't hit the mark. I think also Kyler Murray has yet to throw for 4,000 yards. And it's just one of those things that, this Cardinals offense always has that clout to it, always starts hot. But it just never finishes the way we expect. But let's go on then to the other, I guess, questions that you raised. So let's start off with, let's see, what was the Panthers. So this is a team. I'll let you go further on them. But DJ Moore is I think a really good receiver, and I think they have some couple of complementary options. But at the same time, I'm not seeing like if they double team DJ Moore, I'm not buying Robbie Anderson to go win against single coverage every time. I think he'll do it once or twice, maybe for a big play here and there. And same with Terrence Marshall. It just seems like they're that offense that can pop occasionally and will look great when it does, but I don't think they can do it regularly.
And my big thing with them was their receiving core, their receiving weapons are not the reason they're losing. I think between Sam Darnold and whatever else they got going on, really Sam Darnold, I think that's why they're losing. I think DJ Moore, if you had competent play, and like the way I see it is like if you had like a Matt Ryan, who's he's just a guy who can throw the ball and can get good people or good receivers the ball. Man, DJ Moore, I mean, we could be talking about him closer to the I want to say Devontae Adams, but like closer to like a DeAndre Hopkins type of player than really what he's doing. And I think he's got tons of skill. I think that it's that we're downgrading them based off of who's throwing them the ball once again. But the other thing is, it's hard to say they're receiving core because the truth is, like Christian McCaffrey, he's running back. We didn't include him in these ranks, but he is. I mean, it's DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, and then everybody else. And the truth is, they would be, you have them at 15. I'd probably have them in the top 10 if you include that. Because DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, that is a top 10 duo in my book.
That also comes up to the question of, is Christian McCaffrey going to play more than 5 games? The last 2 years, chronic, just injuries popping up left and right for a man who gets lots of touches, which is scary to me. So let's go on to our next discussion point, the Steelers. So this is actually pretty funny. I have them ranked all the way down at 18. This was the last team you ranked at 13. I have them marked. It could be the next big thing. And I think I have a lot of bias pointing down because Chase Claypool is another guy who's shown flashes, but not regularly. George Pickens, I think when he got drafted, our friend Evan was very excited about bringing him in at receiver. Pat Freiermuth was a great option. And the highlight here is Deontay Johnson, who could be, in my opinion, up in that DJ Moore kind of level if he had a more reasonable quarterback. And I just don't think that's been there. But if this is another team where if Russell Wilson had decided I want to be a Steeler, the Steelers had fought for him, I think this would be a team maybe that I would have a little bit of bias moving them up a little bit, and then they'd still be under that could be the next big thing group and could be in that top 5 or that top of the tier list that we had at the beginning.
Exactly. And my thing is, I have them ranked at 13, and I think that is actually their floor. I mean, because I think Deontay Johnson, he, just like the DJ Moore, it's like he gets open and he drops the ball sometimes. But, he gets open, from short to intermediate routes. Chase Claypool, when you talk about like a athletic monster, it doesn't get better than him. Unfortunately, when he tapered off last year, people stopped calling him Mapletron because that was the best, nickname that a player absolutely hates. But no, really, for as big and as fast as he is, he certainly can take a top off of a defense, and Big Ben did not care. Big Ben did not hold on the ball long enough for that to happen. It's interesting to see what will happen. I'm one of those people where, despite being a Browns fan, I want to see Trubisky actually, ball out, see what these players can do, but also lose twice to the Browns every year. That's all I want. Pickens, once again, is one of those, gamble question marks, could be good. And Freiermuth, he did everything that you would be, you would want from a rookie tight end. So, you know what? It's one of those next year. If we're talking about them in the top 5, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, and let's go on to your last team you have marked, which is the New York Football Giants. This is a receiving core that I think is absurdly deep between Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton. And if you acknowledge Saquon as receiving running back. But I actually have them labeled in a funny named group called Missing Pop, where this is a bunch of nice receivers. They don't have that big elite stud receiver who's gonna, tear it up if you don't, focus a ton of resources to stop him. Kenny Golladay is paid as if he should be that receiver, but I don't think he has that on a regular basis. He's that guy I think could 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, no surprise, but also 17 yards on 2 catches, no surprise. So I like this Giants team, and I would love it if it was picked up and given to Aaron Rodgers or something like that. However, given the state of where they are, I am just not a fan.
So, and that's the thing, the reason why I want to talk about is because you said missing pop. Well, Kadarius Toney is an electric player. Kenny Galladay is an explosive player. Like, they're not necessarily. I don't think they're missing pop. I think they're just missing an offense around them. I really, really am excited to see Saquon this year. I mean, there was recent quotes where he's like, "I feel like I'm coming back. I feel like the old me. It's been a while since that's happened." And I want to see him as a explosive player. I hope he's not burnt. But at the same time, he's electric with the ball. They did a little bit for the offensive line. They're really giving Daniel Jones what he needs to succeed. We'll see if it happens. Once again, I want to see young players do well. Like that's just it. I want to watch good football. And I'll tell you, the Giants were literally unwatchable at the end of the year last year. I mean, I think they go like 8 quarters without scoring a touchdown or something
They
like that.
ran on first or like second and 11 on their 3-yard line. They ran a QB sneak. That's how unwatchable they were.
I really think that though there was a point where it was like
No. Yeah, they went something ridiculous, like multiple games without a touchdown. It was terrible.
yeah, and like with these players, like it shouldn't happen. You know, if Kenny Galladay is just the player that he was in Detroit, yeah, of course he had Stafford, which we're finding is a bigger deal than we thought. And then Kadarius Toney, if he does what he showed for those few games, there could be there's a lot of potential in that team. I would just like to see it. I want to see Dallas play competitive games and not steamroll their division again. That's all I want.
So I'm gonna walk back what I said as missing pop, and I'm gonna label it as missing something. I gave it missing pop because that's what I labeled the Chiefs as, and then I figured this was a team that I saw eye to eye with them, or kind of in that same vein. So what they're missing is the reliability. How about that? Where
There you go.
Kadarius Toney, he looked awesome in a couple games. Like, well, I think in his first game that he actually played, he had like 10 catches for 200 yards or something. 10 catches for like 150 yards. But
He had like 180 yards in like a half.
Yeah,
like a little over a half,
and then he popped his hammy or something. But that's the whole
Yeah.
missing reliability. So we'll label that as missing something. And the Chiefs, what they're missing is the actual pop. All right, so that actually covers. Oh nope, we got one more team to talk about. Ken marked the Packers. I currently have them ranked at 31 because Allen Robinson, Randall Cobb, Robert Tonyan are all terrible, and Christian Watson, he's supposed to be a freak athlete, but there's a reason he went to North Dakota State. So, is this just you're going to complain about what they gave to Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, they all suck. Alan Lazard, I hope the best for him. I want to pick him in all my fantasy leagues and hope he does like his the discount Devontae Adams out there. We'll see what happens, but man, it's a shame that you're just telling Aaron Rodgers like, man, do it by yourself. Good luck. I did want to mention 2 teams that I thought were just a little interesting, and I didn't tell Phil till just now. And those were the Lions and Jets. Like the Jets, like Elijah Moore did pretty good, in his limited time last year. Corey Davis, he's definitely proven that he can do something. Garrett Wilson, like that. Those 3, those are ones that can certainly like jump up these lists. I really hope Zach Wilson can keep up with them. And the other one was the Lions. I mean, DJ Chark has looked like a stud in the past. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, he completely killed it at the end of the year. Hawkinson proved that he can be a reliable tight end. I mean, not necessarily a playmaker, but like reliable for 7 catches and 80 yards a game. And then Jameson Wilson, just a big question mark. Williamson, sorry, is a big question mark. Like those are 2 that like I'm, once again hoping they can, hit their potential.
So to me, GJ Chark had a nice year for a garbage Jaguars team, and I'm throwing that out. And outside of that, he hasn't done much. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a great rookie season for a garbage Lions team. So it's like I'm kind of I gave him a B grade, but I'm still being like, are you that good, or were you getting some garbage time and some love that way? And then I'll give it to you. Hawkinson is finally flashing kind of the potential everyone expected from him, so that's why I'm actually rewarding him, giving them that A- grade. But Jameson Williams, he's getting reports as I don't know, not playing yet because what did he do? Tear his ACL like in the
Yeah,
playoffs?
he tore it towards the end of the year. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
he
he
won't be
might
in for 6 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, he might not be around till the end of the year. And then the Jets, I know, we keep coming back to it. You shouldn't judge someone based on their quarterback, but Zach Wilson is so bad that I'm going to judge and think that this offensive receiving group does not get production because of how bad he is. So that's why I have them at 27. I liked Elijah Moore. I think he looked okay. Corey Davis is one of those guys, not in the same vein as Kenny Galladay, but not as good. Where it's like, yeah, he's gonna have that 120-yard 2-touchdown game, but like you don't get it regularly. And Garrett Wilson, rookie, you hit him with the rookie, what's it called, penalty and uncertainty. But I do like them. I have them in the young and unproven category where they do have upside. So I think realistically they're gonna need progression. They'd probably be right in that same vein as the Eagles. Had the Eagles not added AJ Brown, and probably like low end or like the bottom of the middle pack in terms of receiving cores. But yeah, I think that's all. Is that all we wanted to talk about then?
No, I think that's it. I think we definitely hit it, covered it a lot, and then covered it too much. So yeah.
Absolutely. So the only thing I have left to say is I thought the funniest thing when I was looking through these is the Jaguars and Patriots. They worked so hard to actually be below mediocre, is how I have it labeled. They're 21 and 22 in my book, and they have thrown money in free agency at their receivers, and I still think have nothing to show for it. So that's all we got. Thank you for listening. We will have all these rankings posted, so please check them out and feel free to rip them apart and insult us for not knowing what we're talking about. So
yeah, and still not having the Rams in the top 5. Yep.
Cooper Kupp, #1 receiver, Rams. This is a team game though. Take care.
All right.